You're my main man today. Please be seated. Well, today's gospel is one that I love. A, because I'm short. So I understand Zacchaeus' problem. But I also want you to think about today's gospel reading, if you can remember all the way back to last week, is intricately tied to last week's. Remember last week we had the story about tax collectors. And who is Zacchaeus? What is his job? He's a tax collector. Thank you. See, I told you you're my main man. He's a tax collector. Actually, Jack's the only one that answered. Yes, give me the answer. He's a tax collector. And how did people feel about tax collectors in that day? And why? They took more than they were supposed to take and pocketed it for themselves. And that's who Zacchaeus was. He was a fellow Israelite who was making money by serving the occupying government and charging people and making himself rich. And we're told he's rich. He's doing fine. And you know, in our world, I notice that so often people who are doing fine have an assumption that everybody else could be doing just as fine as they are if they only were somehow as good or as deserving or as wise or as smart as they are. You ever notice that? So many rich people, and that they never, ever, ever, ever have enough. They always need more. I mean, we have a couple of examples in the news this week. Somebody with his billions. Actually, in the last couple of weeks, we've had a couple with their billions that have frittered it on things and then need and want more. You see, if you worship, remember there's that thing about God and money, and you can't worship both, you worship one or the other. So Zacchaeus is hated by his fellow Israelites. But there is a spark inside of Jesus, which we as Christians, our faith says that spark resides inside every person, even those we look down on, or those we despise, or those, like I just said, have judged harshly. But inside of them, there is a spark. And that spark is the connection to God. And the connector, I'm not good in electricity, but the connector is Jesus. We needed last week to get need that little connector, and that connector is Jesus. And so Zacchaeus has this sense inside of himself. Now he knows he can't just like go in the midst of the crowd and push his way in because everybody hates him. And he pushes his way and they're gonna push him right back down. And so he says, I know the route Jesus will take. I'll climb the sycamore tree, and that way I can see Jesus, but nobody else see me. I'll be safe up here. I can get a sighting of this famous guy, and I can even hear what he's saying, but nobody will notice me. I'll be safe. I'll get close to that spark, but it won't connect. Nobody will see me. Except who immediately sees Zacchaeus? Jesus. Oh, and you know what? You made somebody else feel like they could answer too, Jack. See, we're going to get this yet. Jesus immediately sees Zacchaeus. And what does Jesus say to Zacchaeus? Come on down. Why? Why does Zacchaeus need to come down? Because Jesus is going to stay at Zacchaeus' house.
And he needs to come off his perch.
and he needs to come off his perch. That is very true. But Jesus is saying that he is going to enter this hated person's house. And what happens inside Zacchaeus with that invitation? He falls in love with Jesus. And what does he say he's going to do about all the people that he cheated? He's going to repair, he's going to give them back their money. In fact, is he going to just give them back their money? 4 times as much. Jesus, remember last week I was teaching the kids that we're meant to be generous givers? You got to spread your arms out wide. Jesus teaches in that spark, allows people to open themselves up to become generous. And what they discover is they have everything they need and more. But now we have some other people in this gospel story. Who else do we have in today's gospel story? We have that whole crowd of people. That whole crowd of people that have been following and listening to Jesus. And among them are many very religious people. And what is their reaction to Jesus reaching out and healing Zacchaeus? Anger. Thank you. See, you got another person to be brave. Their reaction is anger. How dare he enter the house of a sinner? How dare he include this person in God's blessing? And as all stories, we're in the story ourselves. And more often than not, even though we don't like it, we are every single one of the characters. You and I all have people, and I just demonstrated at the beginning of my sermon, whom we don't approve of, whom we dismiss. Jack, at school, is there somebody that just... Yeah, absolutely. There's always at least one person that bugs you, right? And Jesus, and do you like to do better than that person all the time? Yeah. You know, Jack is being honest, and if all of you are being honest, you're not in your head. Yes, there's times when we all have people that just rub us the wrong way, people that we don't approve of their lifestyle, people that we don't approve of because we don't like the way they dress, look, whatever. The first thing is we need to check ourselves. Are we being like that faithful crowd? Or are we being like Jesus? Are we, in spite of not liking that person, in spite of feeling a sense of competition with that person, are we still willing to be and help be that connector between them and God? Are we still willing to reach out to them, to include them? Not to allow them to misbehave or to cheat us, but to still include, see the Christ in them? Or are we like the crowd who judges and then condemns anyone else's generosity? And there are always times when we are the Zacchaeus. We want to learn a little bit more about Jesus, but we don't want to get too close. We want him to be in our life, but we prefer in our hip pocket instead of directing us. We still want control. We don't want to have to be as generous as Jesus wants us to be. We don't want to have to be as loving as Jesus wants us to be. And in part, it's probably because we don't want that negative judgment of the crowds of the people. We want to fit in. We want to belong. But Jesus calls to each one of us. Every time we go astray, every time we make a judgment, Jesus calls. This story. Are you like Zacchaeus? Are you like the crowd? Are you going to be like me? Every single day we have that opportunity, and every single day we get to make that choice. And some of the time we choose to be the crowd, some of the time we choose to be Zacchaeus, and once in a great while we get it right. We choose to be like Jesus. And that is what will change the world and bring the kingdom of heaven right here among us, within us, in this time, this space. Amen.